Welcome to part one of What is Blended Learning? In this lesson, I'm going to address the question, what is blended learning? I want to explain how blended learning can transform instruction and empower both teachers and students. Most teachers have a vague idea about what blended learning is. They know that it is a blend of online and face-to-face activities. However, if that is all that blended learning is, then what is the big deal? How does it change or impact learning? That is the question that I want to tackle. Before we get into what blended learning is, it is important for us to look at what blended learning is not. Blended learning is not a silver bullet that will solve all our problems in education. We live in a broken world, broken families, broken parents, broken students, and broken teachers. No program or methodology is going to fix all these issues, but that is all the more reason why we must do our very best to make a difference in the lives of our students, and blended learning can help us accomplish that. Blended learning is also not meant to and never will replace a good teacher. A teacher who cares about his or her students and is dedicated to them cannot be replaced. That teacher will always make a difference in the lives of his or her students. Blended learning is also not a quick fix. It will take time for teachers to find and create resources for implementing blended learning. Every teacher will work at a different pace. A teacher might start with one blended learning lesson or unit every 9 weeks and build on that in the following year. There are also different models of blended learning, such as the flipped classroom, station rotation, whole group rotation, and playlists. Teachers will have to discover what works best for them. And finally, it will also take time for students to adjust to blended learning because they will be expected to take more responsibility for their learning. Some students will resist this expectation, others will thrive in it. With that in mind, let's turn to what blended learning is. Here's a definition that is accepted by most educators. Blended learning is a formal education program in which students learn, at least in part, through online learning with some element of student control over time, place, path, and/or pace, but also, at least in part, in a supervised brick-and-mortar location away from home, and the modalities or the various ways in which students experience learning in a course or subject, whether it is a learning management system such as Schoology, or face-to-face instruction, small groups, video conferencing, or a learning platform like Edgenuity, whatever the modality, they are connected to provide an integrated learning experience. While this definition is a good one, it really doesn't get at the heart of blended learning. It is possible to meet all the characteristics of this definition and still be a terrible learning experience for both the teacher and students. However, there are some hints in this definition that are helpful. For example, it refers to online learning. One of the key features of blended learning is that the teacher posts instructional videos, assessments, assignments, and discussions to an online learning management system like Schoology. This shift to online instruction sets the teacher free from always being in front of the classroom and gives him or her the opportunity and the time to work with small groups and individuals to close learning gaps and help students who are struggling to keep up. A second helpful hint in our definition is that blended learning ideally should give students some control over time, place, path, and/or pace of learning. This leads us to another key feature of blended learning, which is student autonomy. At its core, blended learning is a fundamental shift in control from the teacher to the learner. Blended learning flourishes in a community of learners where teachers form a partnership with students. In her book, Balance with Blended Learning, Dr. Catlin Tucker writes this: traditionally, students have inhabited a relatively powerless position in the classroom. They are expected to comply with the teacher's directives. This hierarchical structure in the classroom may create tension between teachers and their students, which manifests in power struggles, classroom management issues, and decreased levels of intrinsic motivation. The problem lies in the fact that this classic power structure denies students agency and autonomy. Autonomy, or the freedom to control one's actions, has been identified as a basic human need that, when met, yields higher levels of intrinsic motivation and improves learning outcomes. Instead of thinking of our relationship with students as hierarchical, we should think of ourselves as partners working with our students to customize learning to best meet their needs. Now that raises this question: is it really possible to form a partnership with our students, and how does this happen in the classroom without students running over the teacher? The answer lies in a teacher who genuinely cares about our students and is committed to their success. It is still grounded in strong classroom management skills, but students must know that their teacher cares for them. In her TED Talk titled "Every Kid Needs a Champion," Rita Pierson says this: "Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be." She goes on to point out that learning is grounded in relationships, and kids don't learn from people they don't like. Blended learning models can provide teachers and students with the time and space to nurture and build this partnership. But building this relationship must be intentional. It does not happen automatically. Dr. Catlin Tucker writes this: "Forming relationships with students is a fundamental component of a person-centered approach to education. Students need to feel like they have a meaningful connection with their teacher if they're going to lean into learning. When teachers have conversations with their students, listen to their questions, and respond thoughtfully, ask for opinions, and allow them a voice and a choice in the class, students feel respected and valued, and as a result, they are more likely to learn." In the Blended Learning Academy, we will often come back to this topic. Another key feature of blended learning is personalization of instruction. Because instructional content, such as assessments, assignments, and discussions, are online, student progress can be tracked. This data can provide teachers with valuable information that should be used to adjust instruction and differentiate it for every student. Schoology has several features that makes this possible, which you will learn more about in the Blended Learning Academy. Now I'm going to end part 1 of this video on what is blended learning, but I do want you to reflect on the key principles that have been mentioned so far. The first principle is that teachers will place instructional content online to give the teacher time and space to differentiate and personalize instruction. Second, teachers must be willing to give up some control of the learning process by forming a partnership with students and giving them more autonomy and responsibility for their learning. In part 2 of What is Blended Learning, we will look at some additional features.